João always led a normal life, or at least that's what he thought. Living in a medium-sized city, he worked as a mechanic in a small workshop. His routine was predictable. He woke up early, spent the day among cars and tools, and at night, he met with friends at a local bar. To many, his life seemed calm, routine, and without major issues, but behind that apparent normality, João carried addictions and habits that, over time, began to dominate him in ways he didn't foresee. Deep down, he knew something was wrong, but he preferred to ignore the signs that appeared on his path, believing they were mere coincidences, without meaning. The small signs manifested in subtle but constant ways. A physical discomfort here, a feeling of emptiness there. João noticed that his body no longer responded as before. Fatigue was his daily companion, even when he slept well. He felt unmotivated, as if life was passing him by in a slow and uninteresting march. The things that once brought him joy, like spending time with family or working on more demanding projects, no longer satisfied him. He was trapped in a kind of stagnation that seemed never-ending. His friends, who knew him well, began to notice changes in his behavior, commenting that he was no longer the same. His laughter became rarer, his humor more closed off, and the spark in his eyes seemed dimmed. Despite these warnings, João continued to resist the idea that something needed to change. When some close people mentioned they had distanced themselves from certain groups and reconsidered their life choices, he quickly dismissed their advice, thinking they were exaggerating. He saw himself as a strong man, capable of dealing with his own problems, and firmly believed he had everything under control. Nothing has changed, he told himself, trying to convince himself that his life was the same as always and that he didn't need to make adjustments. However, deep down, a part of João knew he was ignoring a truth that was growing within him. João was not always like this. There was a time when he was full of energy, with dreams and ambitions that kept him motivated. When he was younger, he was known for his determination and desire to make a difference, both in his professional and personal life. He was close to his family, had hobbies that liberated him, and friends who inspired him to be better. However, over the years, life's disappointments, financial difficulties, and the loss of some loved ones pushed him into a spiral of self-sabotage. Gradually, vices settled in as a form of escape, and negative influences took the place of the healthy relationships he once cultivated. The transformation was slow and almost imperceptible, and now, looking at himself, João could hardly recognize the man he used to be. In moments of reflection, amidst the smoke of a cigarette and a glass of drink, João found himself thinking about how different his life could be. Something inside him seemed to be in constant alert, but he quickly pushed those thoughts away. After all, who likes to admit that they need to change, that the place once surrounded by friends could harm him or be detrimental? One night, João had a strange dream. He saw himself in a vast field, alone, and heard a distant voice calling his name. The voice, firm and serene, told him that he needed to change. When he woke up, the dream lingered in his mind for days, but he decided to ignore it. Just a dream, he thought, dismissing any spiritual significance. In the following months, the signs became more evident. Arguments with toxic friends increased, he began to have frequent health problems, and a feeling of emptiness took over his life. João knew something was not right, but he continued to ignore the signs that life seemed to offer him. He distracted himself with his habits, sinking deeper into his vices and surrounding himself with people who brought him down, not realizing that he was drifting further away from God and ignoring those signs. One day, while working, João felt a sharp pain in his chest. Trying to ignore it, as he always did with warning signs, he took a deep breath and went back to work. But the pain persisted until he needed to be taken to the hospital. The diagnosis: heart attack. João was in critical condition and was rushed to the emergency room, unsure if he would make it out alive from this unexpected moment in his life. Lying in the hospital bed, with his eyes heavy from fatigue and pain, João finally realized that his life was hanging by a thread. Amidst the wires and machines keeping him alive, he felt a different presence in that room. It was as if time had stopped, and an absolute silence enveloped him. The fear and pain were replaced by a calm he had never experienced before. It was at that moment that João had a revelation that would change his life forever. He felt an inexplicable peace, and in his mind, a clear and unmistakable voice spoke, "You have ignored the signs. This is the last one. The change starts now or it will be too late." João knew, deep in his heart, that it was God speaking to him. For a few minutes, he relived every wrong decision, every vice, and every toxic person he had insisted on keeping close. He understood, with a haunting clarity, that his life could have taken a very different path had he listened to the signs. But there, lying in the hospital bed, between life and death, he still had a chance to change. The revelation was so powerful that he felt his internal resistance melting away. In the days that followed, as he recovered in the hospital, João reflected deeply on his life. He decided that as soon as he got out, he would cut ties with people who only brought negativity. He would quit his vices, seek help, and live a healthier life, both physically and spiritually. He knew it wouldn't be easy, but for the first time in a long time, he was determined to be the author of his own story of redemption. Back home, the first thing João did was throw away all the bottles of alcohol and packs of cigarettes. He felt a sense of liberation as he did this, as if he were closing an old door and opening a new one. Next, he began to distance himself from the friendships that had pushed him into the abyss. It wasn't easy, but he knew it was necessary to follow the path that had been shown to him. João also returned to faith. He started attending church, something he hadn't done in many years, and found a support group that helped him maintain his commitment to change. Slowly, he began to rebuild himself as a person. He saw that change was not only a physical transformation but also spiritual and emotional. Each day was a new opportunity to be better. The changes did not happen overnight. João knew the many challenges and hurdles he would face. But every time he felt himself weakening, he remembered the revelation he had in the hospital, the voice of God that had given him a second chance. This gave him the strength to move forward. With each new obstacle, he became more committed to honoring the new life that had been offered to him at the brink of death. Over time, João became an inspiration to others. He shared his story, his mistakes, and his transformation. Many admired his courage to change and, above all, the faith he now carried in his heart. João did not see his journey as a story of failures but as one of learning and rebirth. Today, João lives a very different life. He has become more aware of his choices, keeps his distance from everything that could harm him, and, most importantly, lives in gratitude for the second chance he received. In the months that followed, João continued to fight against his old demons, but this time with renewed strength. He knew his life was still undergoing transformation, but each small victory was a reason to celebrate. Challenges arose, old habits tried to return, but João had something greater to fight for. His faith sustained him, and he remembered daily the revelations he had in the hospital. That voice echoed in his mind. He also began to help others who were going through situations similar to his. João became a kind of mentor to those struggling with addictions and seeking a more balanced life. His story of overcoming became an example and motivation for many, and he felt fulfilled to see that his past suffering was now bearing positive fruit in the lives of others. In addition to his faith and support from new friendships, João discovered the importance of self-care and mental well-being. He began to engage in physical activities, changed his diet, and, above all, learned to meditate and listen to himself. Now, in moments of silence, he no longer heard just emptiness. He heard the peace he had been seeking, and he felt increasingly connected to something greater, something that guided him relentlessly. His courage grew day by day, giving him a sense of purpose in life, a lightness he had never known before. The old friends, those who had brought out his worst qualities, remained in the past. João didn't blame them, but he also didn't want them in his life anymore. He knew that he had to make difficult choices to maintain his balance and continue his journey of transformation. However, these choices strengthened him and allowed him to build new relationships based on mutual respect and values he hadn't even considered before. Today, looking back, João realizes that the revelation he had was not just a warning to change. It was a gift, a second chance to live, to rediscover himself, and to find the true purpose of his existence. He now lived with the certainty that his life was no longer guided by chance or thoughtless choices. He followed a clearer, firmer path that was, above all, full of meaning. As time passed, João discovered that his transformation was far from an isolated event. It wasn't just about quitting vices and distancing himself from bad company. It was a deep and ongoing change that invited him to grow with each new day. The revelation he had in the hospital had planted a seed inside him, but it was up to João to nurture this new life that was emerging. He began to dedicate himself more to self-knowledge, diving into readings that had previously not interested him, and seeking answers to questions he had once ignored. His interest in the spiritual also deepened. João started attending gatherings where he learned about meditation, prayer, and the power of connection with the divine. He realized the importance of communing with something much greater than himself, something he had previously been unaware of that gave him purpose and direction. With each new experience, he felt his faith strengthen, which helped him remain steadfast in the most challenging moments. During one of these church retreats, João met people who, like him, had gone through critical moments in life and needed divine intervention to change. He felt united and understood in a way he had never experienced before. Sharing his experiences with those who had similar stories reinforced his certainty that his transformation was not a matter of chance. He was there to help and be helped, to learn and teach. Each day, João felt more at peace with the choices he made. He knew that his old life, though full of mistakes and regrets, had prepared him for this new chapter. The challenges and sufferings of the past were now lessons he used to guide his new journey. Instead of feeling remorse, he cultivated gratitude for having survived and for receiving the opportunity to be reborn. The impact of his work was beyond what he had ever imagined. João began to be invited to participate in radio shows, television programs, and podcasts. He was seen as an example of resilience, and his ability to connect his own story with the experiences of others resonated deeply with those who listened. Each interview was an opportunity to further expand his message and reach those who were still lost amid difficulties, unable to see a way out. Over time, João realized that his work was not limited to videos and lectures. He began organizing in-person events where he brought together people from various parts of the country to talk about healing, transformation, and faith. These gatherings were powerful moments of exchange, where tears, laughter, and hugs were shared amid stories of overcoming. João felt fulfilled, knowing that his pain and struggles had been transformed into something positive for so many people. Still, João did not neglect his personal journey. He continued to dedicate himself to self-knowledge and spiritual growth, understanding that his transformation was a continuous process. He knew that despite his victories, there was still much to learn and evolve. The faith that had sustained him in the most difficult moments remained the foundation of his life, and he maintained a routine of prayer, meditation, and reflection. These moments of deep connection with the divine helped him stay centered and strong, even in the face of daily challenges. João understood that life was not free of difficulties, but he believed that with faith and discipline, it was possible to weather any storm. He committed himself daily to be the best version of himself, remaining steadfast in his purpose of inspiring and helping those who, like him, sought a new chance. Life shows us signs, do not ignore them.